Welcome to the For Fresno podcast. My name is Gordon, and you can check out all our podcasts at forfresno.com. Well, for today's discussion, we talk with Brian King. Brian King is a Chicago native, and he grew up as a gang member and a very large drug dealer. And since he moved to Fresno, he wanted to give back positively. And so since 2001, he and 7 other pastors made a 20-year commitment to help rebuild West Fresno. And part of that was the Street Saints. Now he's working as the pastor at large for the Well Community Church. And so we're going to talk with Brian and see between his story and what he's doing now, how he impacts Fresno and how we can jump in and help him. All right, let's jump in with Brian King. Welcome to For Fresno. My name is Gordon, and we got another great guest today. We got Pastor Brian King here with us. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. How you doing, Gordon? Appreciate it, brother.
Brian is a pastor at large with the Well Community Church, and we're going to hear a little bit of a story, what he's doing, and he's influenced a lot of people, not just in Fresno, but all over the nation. And I'm just really glad to talk to you. We just recently met, and this is going to be great.
Yes, sir.
So, Brian, tell me a little bit about your story and how you came to Fresno and what you've been doing briefly, if you can, over the past, I don't know, how many years?
Oh, man, for quite a few years now. Story like everyone else, but not, I can't say like everyone else, yeah, but I was really originally born in Chicago, Illinois. Came from a pretty decent home, mother and father, up to the age of 8, when my father began to, his alcoholism began to really affect him, and he became real abusive with my mom. And so I can remember him jumping on my mom one night, and I ran out there, and he made us go back in the room, me and my brother, and when we went back in that next morning, I seen my mom, and I told my brother, I said, "Hey, this can't happen no more, man." And so things got cool, got back to normal. A few months later, the same thing happened. And so I remember running out there with a stick and smacking him with a stick and told him, "Man, I'll kill you if you hit my mother again." And so he jumped up in his drunken stupor. He looked at me, and I guess he realized somewhere in there that this was his son, but I knew because and the thing was, we grew up in between 2 of the largest apartment housing complexes in the city. We had Ida B. Wells on the east of us and Stateway Robert Taylor on the west of us. And I mean, like 2 blocks, stone throws away from us. And so it was a heavily 100% African-American, gang-infested area where we had to fight to go to school, fight to come home, fight to go to the store, fight to play in the playground. And so we had to, and doing that, we had to figure out a way to make sure that we can protect ourselves. And so I made the biggest mistake of my life by joining the gang. Mm-hmm. So I joined the gang at 8, and I stayed in that gang from the time I was 8 till I was 33. And I mean, wow. You name all the horror stories that went along with being in one of the largest cities and one of the largest gangs in the nation. And what a 8-year-old kid coming through that had to experience was horrific. But had a great friend that I met in 1969 around the same time I joined the gang, named Tyrone Bradley, that was a pretty good basketball player that came that got a opportunity to get a scholarship to Fresno State, and would in 1979, and would beg me to come out here, me and most of the guys in our community, come out to Fresno to change our lives. But I was so caught in the gangs and different things like that, I never came. And so in 1993, after the death of his father and him coming home for the funeral, I told him, "Hey, man, I'll come out and spend a Christmas with you." And came out December 1993, and for a 2-week visit. And all of a sudden, the day I was going home, we sat in his backyard, and he told me, "Man, please don't go back, man. If you go back, you're going to wind up dead or in jail." And So I told him the only thing I knew, man, is, the only thing I know, T-Bone, is gangs and drug dealing and all the things that come along with that. And so we talked to about 3 that morning, and I decided to say, okay, T-Bone, I'll try. And so I stayed, and he tried to help me find jobs and different things like that, but not having the education and no job, no skill set, it was kind of hard. And so his wife was working at EPU, Exceptional Parents Unlimited, and she asked us to attend a men's group. And so I went to attend the men's group, me and him, and he really didn't like it, but I kind of loved it because it was some things that I've never heard men talk about before. Mm-hmm. And so the brother that was there, a great guy, Elliot Stevenson, who's still around, would take us to, he took the men he set up all sorts of trips. We went to Yosemite, we went to the ocean, we went to the Redwoods. I mean, you name it, we went with him. And then one day he came in and said, you know what, man, won't you guys go to church with me? And so I said, oh, man, this guy got to be kidding. He then tricked us. He done took us everywhere. Now he's taking us to church. And so we went to church for the first time, Grace Community Baptist Church. And I heard the gospel for the first time. And it was Marvin Davis, who was the pastor, and he preached about Jesus healing the man that was born blind. And for some reason, I was at the altar, which I had already told my buddy that was in the band with me, because Elliot got out to get some gas. And so I told my buddy, I said, hey, man, I don't know what he's thinking with this church thing. I'm not going to be a part of that or even do anything with that. And so Bobby was saying the same thing. Yeah, I ain't doing it either, Brian, But since, Elliot's been so kind to us, we'll go. So I'm like, yeah. So he pumped his gas. He got back in, got us to the church. And after the service, man, I just felt myself standing at the altar crying, man, asking Jesus to take me. And Elliot and Bobby Spraggins was the same spot, asking God to take him. And so, and this was in February of 1994. I got here December of 93. In February of 94, wow. I was a Christian. And so I was running around telling everybody I seen about Jesus. And some pastors heard about me. H. Spees and Bruce Carricker heard about me and called me into office and began to tell me about the gospel and what I was doing and how they should connect me to something that an organization that will mentor me and bring me along so I won't burn out. And so they connect me with World Impact, which was then a national organization that was created by a guy, Keith Phillips, out of the Watch Riots. And I began to learn from them. Then from there on, I went to Hope Now for Youth. I went to work for One by One. And so I began to work in a lot of different nonprofits. And I seen that we had a bunch of great people who really loved what they were doing. But what was really happening was we had so many we had a lot of smart people that understood the deficits of a lot of the underserved communities and would write for some great grants to have us go in and work. But most of the time it would be capacity building grants. And we would go in and we would be there for 3 or 4 years, but wasn't able to sustain the effort. And then we would leave and see people in the communities through the rearview mirror. And so
I see, yeah.
In the process of being tutored by guys like H and Bruce Carricker, G.L. Johnson, some of our leaders, we would go to men's retreats. And at one men's retreat, I met a guy, Reed Carpenter, who was the president of Leadership Foundations of America, who was our keynote speaker up at Redwood Christian Camp. And so we built a great friendship, and to the day we're still friends and connect with each other. And Reed told me a story about how him and some guys got together and made a 20-year commitment to make Pittsburgh as famous for God as it was for steel. And so I never forgot that story. And so as I was watching us begin to try to continue to work in West Fresno and Southeast Fresno, it was the same thing. We would get the capacity building funds, and then we would have to leave once they're done. But
Yeah.
in 2000, I asked several pastors coming from a bringing Broken Back neighborhood meeting in the police station in West Fresno, where a lot of ministries meet with churches and law enforcement and CBOs, community block organizations, began to talk about solutions. And so I asked several pastors, what would happen if we made a 20-year commitment to create something that would be here, belong here, and stay here? And so they said, yeah, let's do it. But at the time, before that, there was a young lady, a great friend of ours, Barbara Elliott, was going around the nation writing a book called Street Saints. And her book was based on her going throughout the whole nation, sitting down, talking with different organizations, different peoples, different ministries, different political leaders to find out, what it would take to change the fabric of the inner cities. And so in that book, I was fortunate enough to get a full chapter. And so I called her and asked her if we could start an organization and use the name Street Saints. And she said, sure. She gave us some prerequisites and we did that. Called her, she said, let's go. She came down and visited us. And she said, let's go. And so that 20-year commitment started in 2000. And so I left 20 years later in 2000 and in 2020. And so now Street Saints is up and running and has been running for over the last 20 years.
Wow. That's crazy. What a God-changing story to think about. The first 33 years of your life. And, basically the same age that Jesus was when he was crucified.
I think about that sometimes.
February of, you said 1994. And God using you for those 6 years to prep you for Street Saints and meeting all those people. And yes, some great leaders you mentioned for sure. That's crazy. So we'll talk more about that, but let's just continue. What are you doing now?
Oh yeah, now I am so when it was coming time for me to figure out what I was going to do, I had some great mentors that had been around for a while, and they were part of the well. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, man, I ain't thought about it. And so we began to talk and pray and look at options. And so some people, a couple of guys said, hey man, won't you just come join the well? Because I had been a member there for the last 4 or 5 years. And so decided to say, hey man, that might be a great fit, man. And so we prayed about it, talked about it. And Brad was a real gracious and saying, man, I would love to have you on our team and because of what you bring as a minister. And so let's do it. And so I talked with the elders, and a lot of the elders were glad to have me on board, and I was glad to be on board. And so now I'm on board at the Well Community Church.
Yeah, great. And you're a pastor at large. So what does that mean? Like, what are you now physically doing at the Well? Are you
so I'm
office or what?
No, I'm brought on to help in a number of areas. One, to help in the racial reconciliation part, to be there to help us understand some of that stuff. And I'm also there to be trained as an associate pastor now at the North Campus. And so there's a lot of training I'm going to be a part of.
Awesome.
There's a lot of learning that I'm going to be learning as full pastoral care. And I'm also going to still be using those relationships and networks that I've built over the last 28 years in Fresno to begin to see how we can help connect people to God and people to other people into every neighborhood.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with that, I ask this to every guest. What are you for?
Okay, I'm for servant leadership.
Servant leadership. Awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that we a lot of us tend to lead frontwards instead of serving. And so I'm really big on trying to develop servant leaders that want to get out and lead the people behind them, not in front of them, to get people to continue to build up the Brian Kings of the world,
Mm.
to build up the laborers that we have, those hidden gems that we have in these communities that can make a difference, more difference than any of us who with any bachelors or masters or I mean those people who are already on the ground really caring about their neighborhoods but don't have the resources and networks to make those things happen. You know, like a mother who kid was probably murdered or in a drive-by or a drunken driver, and she started Mothers Against Drunken Driving or Mothers Against Gang Violence, and we
Yeah.
began to go in and train them to be servant leaders.
Yeah.
I
No, that's awesome.
really love that.
Well, so you've been a part of Fresno, you said, for 28 years. And as we are all looking to impact our city and like you said, build up servant leadership in different areas, what are some of those problems that you see in Fresno and how do you hope to be a part of the solution?
Well, I don't think it's just in Fresno. I think that the problem I see, we're so divided and we're so easily divided.
Hmm.
We can jump on an issue as easy as it appears. I mean, from mass to Republican, Democrat to George Floyd to Pride to you name it, we can jump in it. And what we do when we jump in it, we forget who we are and we become something else. So we forget that it's like I had a little guy in Chicago, and they always said, "Man, he always want to be like you. He want to be like he dressed like you. He do everything. If you go get that type of car, he gonna get the same type of car. He gonna get this man." And so I called him in. I said, "Man," and I said, "Man, it's no, you know, there's nothing wrong with looking up to people and want to be sometime emulating people, but if you're going to be me, who's going to be you? So if we as Christians are going to be elephants or donkeys or mask on or mask off, who's going to be Christians?
Hmm.
And so the problem I see today is we're so easy divided among things. I kind of during this 2020 pandemic, it was so funny because I really had to bag up off a lot of the things that I were attending in group sessions because even in some of our pastors' prayer, you can find out we begin to seek God on other pastors.
Hmm.
And those with masks, God, we pray that those that don't want to wear the mask, that you bring them to some type of understanding. Or God, we pray that those that's wearing the mask, you allow them to know that they walk with you.
Yeah.
God, those that's voting for the elephant, God, they don't understand when elephants crush you. And God, those with the donkeys understand that, or and so
Yeah.
you're like, man, we're divided even in this. So where is Christ at? We're supposed to be centered in Christ driven.
Yeah.
And so if we're doing that and doing that, who's going to be us?
Right. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. There's a lot of mind games out there that are keeping us from thinking and putting our mind on Christ and putting our mind probably more toward fear, if anything. I think fear is a big
Mm-hmm,
divider, and you're
mm-hmm,
saying that you've even seen that among pastors, and even when pastors pray, and that That's really scary. Well,
Yeah.
as we're rebuilding, a lot of what is, I guess torn down, especially from the past year, but just even general things before 2020. What do you see the next 5 years uh, coming out of Fresno? I mean, if we get together, we want to impact Fresno. What are you hoping to see with some of the work that you're doing and some of the work you've done with Fresno Street Saints?
I'm praying to see some cohesiveness. We're fragmented, and I'm talking about. I'm hoping that I can use my position to bring where we're not talking about the white church or the black church or the Latin church or the Southeast Asian church, that we're talking about the church,
Hmm.
the church of God, because when we begin to speak things in existence, that's what happened, because every time we're having a conversation, we talk about, oh, that church over there, or those people, or those church. We're not going to be able to say that when we stand before the master. He's going to come back for his church.
Right.
And so if we can begin to, if I can begin any type of way to help us work to know that God is coming back for one people, despite, everything we go through, everything we talking about now, cultural and all this different stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cancel culture and this and that and this and that, and we jumping on sides, and it's not helpful for us as Christians, because again, we take our eyes off the prize, which is the Christ, which is the cross. And so I pray that we can figure that out, and that I can be a part to help bring some of that to a reality,
Yeah.
that we have to. We've been given marching orders as Christians to follow the Christ, and that's a narrow road that we can't continue to pile different initiatives and policies and politicism and all this stuff on to.
So in your work, what do you think some of the next steps might be for that? Because I agree. I think we need to be more unified, and I mean, maybe you're still talking about it with some of the pastors at the well, since the job is somewhat newer, I guess. But do you have any tangible next steps? Because I know for me and the people in my circles, like I'm not going to be able to tell my friends just to forget about the donkeys and the elephants and forget about masks or not masks and forget about this, because it's still, it's kind of I guess important to them in a way, maybe fearful in a way. And so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that we've started a great work. I've been meeting over the last year with some great guys, some great leaders from different parts of it. It's been about 13 of us have been meeting all through the pandemic, all through the George Floyd situation, about what can we do, what can we do as a group to begin to model what Christ would have for His people, and which this group is made up of a whole group of diversity. We got some great guys, and we got some huge pastors from some of the bigger churches. We got some of the smaller churches. And we got some business guys. We got some law enforcement. We got everybody that was almost at odds and during the 2020 years coming together. That's been meeting for the last maybe 12, 13 months. That we've been reading great books together. We've been
Yeah.
having rough conversations. We've been having tough conversations. We've been taking each other to lunch. We've been taking each other to dinner. We've been
Wow.
cried with each other. We've been brought in great speakers to help us begin to see how we can be the beginning of that a model to show Christians working together from all backgrounds and all walks. So it's been great doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That reminds me, one of my favorite movies is Cool Runnings, the Jamaican bobsled story. And there's a line in there that one of the characters says, and he says, "People are always afraid of what's different." And it sounds like you have got a group of people who are maybe different, whether it's in life or job or life stage. And one of the next steps sounds like understanding what's different, not being afraid of it, stepping into that. And whether it's a group of 13 or maybe a couple person relationship. But I think that is a great example to model, because how are you going to move forward with someone or a group of people or an understanding of an ideology if you don't understand where it's coming from? And even if you never agree on it, you can at least respect people and love them for where they're at, and help each other really better your community and better humanity as a result of it.
Yes, yeah, and it's about embracing the difference.
Hmm.
Because I mean, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And so as we began to embrace those differences, I mean, and don't think that it wasn't some rough times and some
Yeah.
hard conversations, and it was, but overall, the what everybody said is that, man, you're my brother,
Hmm.
you're my brother. And so it's been great meeting with these guys, and now we're looking at taking some of what we do at the well and implementing it in some of the churches that's at this table, you know, to help in strengthening marriages of the African American family and strengthen uh, 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 some of the biblical studies that we can add on to other pastors, smaller pastors that didn't have the opportunity to go through the seminaries that a lot of
Right.
other people have, you know,
Yeah.
to try to see how we can help lift some of the burden of some of our smaller churches with some of our life groups and different things like that. Some of
Yeah.
our we had great conversations with the pastors to start re-engage, get those guys trained up and re-engage and merge, so we can start talking about strength and healthy families. And so it's going to be work. We got a long way to go, but we got a great start
Yeah.
and going that way.
Well, I love it. I love that you have godly people around you having those hard conversations and wanting to pave the way. And maybe we'll get you on a year from now, and I want to hear how
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
going. That'd be really awesome.
yeah.
For
Yeah.
people who want to get involved with kind of what you're doing, or maybe get involved with the well, or is there a way that we can help you or get involved?
Man, yeah, we're looking for building networks and relationships throughout our whole city. The well is open. Definitely, our services are 9-11. We have the PM services for those who can't really get through on the weekend. We have reconnect, regeneration, regen. I mean, there's just so many great
Yeah.
ways to get involved. And so feel free, man, come out, man, and worship with us and become do life with us. We're definitely open to having people come out. And Street Saints is still active. Nicole and Joby, I would definitely love to get you guys connected so they can get on and they can talk about what Street Saints is today and how they can how people can connect with them and help them,
Yeah.
and they can help people sometimes reach some of the goals they have in serving.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd love to have them on the show, and I'd love to hear more about the stories that they have and the stories that you've had over the last 20 years to help encourage us and show some of the impact that you guys have made.
Yes, love to be. We'll get that connected. We'll get you guys connected so you can really have them on so they can talk about the great work that they're doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Brian, I just want to thank you for being on the show. But before we head out, like to give the guests on here 60 seconds. If we miss something, or if you just want to share an encouragement with our audience, you have the floor.
Oh, well, I think we kind of shared what was on our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
My prayer again is that we understand that one day the sky is going to crack and we're going to give an account for the deeds done, and I'm hoping that God can say to you, "Well done."
Mm.
And so I just know that I love my city, I love my community, and I want to be here to help service. Thank you for the job you're doing at getting recognition out for those people who want to be servant leaders and who want to be productive in our city. You're doing a wonderful job, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. I know there was a man who used to work at the well named Rick Taylor. I don't know if you met him or not before. You would always used to say the definition of leadership is taking initiative for the benefit of others,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea of taking initiative, serving other people to benefit them, to care for them, to help them. I mean, that's exactly what you're doing, and you as a servant leader to model that and to continue to do that in our community is just super encouraging. And so I wish you guys the best. I want to talk to you guys in the future to see what's going on, and
Let's do it.
just really appreciate you and thank you for being on the show, Brian.
Yes, sir. Okay, brother. Be blessed. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Brian again for coming on the show. What a great conversation to hear his story and hear about what he's doing here in Fresno. It's really encouraging that behind the scenes, we may not know that a lot of our local leaders are gathering together and trying to unite our city. And so, Brian, I just wish you and the team God's blessings and the best of luck in getting that going. And hopefully we'll be able to hear from you in a year or so. If you're moved by today's conversation and want to reach out to Brian, Brian, again, is currently at the Well Community Church, and you can go to their website and reach out to Brian through their contact. Also, just like with all our guests, if you enjoyed this conversation and want to send them a digital thank you, you can go to forfresno.com, find this episode, click on it, and send Brian a digital thank you for all the work that he's been doing. And I want to give a big thank you to our listeners every single week. Those who watch and listen to these podcasts, please continue to like, rate, subscribe. Anything you can do can help get the word out. We appreciate that very much. Well, next week we get to talk with Tammy Beers, who's a director of Child Evangelism Fellowship. And we get to hear about her and her team and how they impact children and our schools all around the valley. You don't want to miss it. And remember, you matter, your impact matters, because we're the church and we're here to serve our city.